So we're going to dive into Bitcoin today and have a look at some of the short-term targets and why we may be potentially moving to the upside with about a 70% probability, and I'm going to show you why. I'll show you exactly how this pattern can play out, and if this pattern is wrong, why Bitcoin will likely crash 20% based on historical data. So if that sounds good to you, go ahead and like, subscribe to the channel. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. So taking a look at Bitcoin on the short-term time frame, you can see that Bitcoin is forming this inverse head and shoulders just over here pretty clearly. And really, it's exactly the price targets and levels that we were speaking about in the last video, where we're saying that if we break to the upside and start to form some sort of deviating lower highs, okay, and then we move down, we'd be looking to get support at $16,100, and we need to see some sort of clear support form here, and that's exactly what we have got for the bullish scenario. And what we saw yesterday gave us a little bit more confirmation that we might be moving to the upside with this swing failure pattern that we got in the middle of the day, where we made our down move on the Monday, and then we basically saw some support, tried to move lower, and then we moved back straight into the range and then basically took out this high and then consolidated. So that was your signal to move higher and potentially look for an inverse head and shoulder to the upside. Bitcoin still needs to clear some of these lower high areas, okay, and if it does this and it can start to break above 16.6 and 16.7k, then I do think breaking this trend line and breaking those levels over here gives us a good shot of reaching about 17.4, 17.1 as the main target, and then above that I'm seeing some confluence and some targets at about 18.4k, which I'll show you why we can reach there in a moment. We take a measured move over here and we take the breakout from a potential inverse head and shoulders to the upside, you can see that that takes us to about $18,000, which again is coincidentally the breakdown point and a retest of the pattern that we broke down from in November with the FTX crash, and maybe take out and rechannel some of the range highs back in middle of November. So that's what I'm looking at there. And then if we take a look at some of the Fibonacci extensions, you can see that a measured move from bottom to top of this impulse right shoulder of the inverse head and shoulders gives us a 1.618 at about 18.3, 18.4, and a 1-to-1 extension of about 17.45 as well. So definitely an area that I'm looking out for, and given that price sentiment at the minute is very, very low and very, very poor, and everyone is only thinking of lower prices, I wouldn't be surprised to see some more chop and some more moves to fake people up, back to the upside if we were to break out from this inverse head and shoulders. And check this out, I've had a look at some of the inverse head and shoulders that we've got in the past since 2018 in both the bull and bear cycles, and you can see that with about a 70% probability they do tend to break to the upside and can give you a percentage break of anywhere between about 7 to 10% and as high as even 25%. And you can see that in 2018 in February, in some of these lows, you can see that these played out pretty nicely, and I've tried not to cherry pick these. I've tried to pick out the most clear patterns and shown you how they've played out in the past, okay? And you can see that when we got that again in 2019, we did get inverse head and shoulders starting to play out, and then we broke down and we got a breakdown of 20%, okay? So when we get a breakdown of these inverse head and shoulders and they fail, they do tend to break down to the downside about 20% and get some violent moves, but typically you can see that on balance they do tend to play out to the upside with quite a high probability. And you can see again in some of these patterns in December 2020 that we basically got the pattern that we were looking for, left head and right shoulder, break to the upside, and even when we continue downwards a few weeks later, we still get an initial breakup of about 10-15%, which you can see over here in February and April in 2021, and even here when we're still in a big consolidation, when we did get a pattern that was similar to what we see today in the June lows about a year and a half ago, we still got a breakup of about 10%, okay? So definitely something that I'm keeping an eye on, and some other measured moves that we've seen in 2001 and even 2022. And the last time we got that failed break, that failed inverse head and shoulders break to the upside, that when we broke down from that again, we saw that big capitulation crash of about 20%, 25%. So if we do get a breakdown, do expect a breakdown of 20% if we are not able to break up from here. But from a probability standpoint, we're looking at about 70% probability chance to try to take some upside price action from here. and 10 to 15% is going to put us anywhere within the range of 18.4k, retesting some of these trend lines, and 17.1, 17.4k at the earliest. So definitely some areas that I'm looking at. And as we said, if we break down from here and we get a tap down of about 20 to 25% as that final push, which I was been suggesting that might just be that final low for Bitcoin, then what we're looking at here is, like we said, essentially a big tap into this area of liquidity and this big order block at about 12 to 14k, and you can see that that would line up exactly into some of these key zones here. So expect that if we get a violent breakdown from this inverse head and shoulders, and if we lose 16k and we lose that 15.5k, and we do that quite soon in the next week or two, I would expect one last flash crash, in my opinion, to maybe mark out that local or serious bottom for Bitcoin in this bear market. And that would also coincide with this downward sloping trend line that we've had since those summer lows in 2021. And if we got a fourth touch just down here, that would also line up with the date and also with the 20% crash and back into this order block. So definitely something that I'm looking out for if this inverse head and shoulders breaks to the downside. And you'll know that it's a failed inverse head and shoulders because once we lose this low at 16.k, that is your first indication. And if we take this out quite quickly of 15.5k and we retest this a third time, that tells me that support is going to probably break pretty harshly. And then when we get that move down, again, that's why we're looking at 13.8k and how you can spot it if it happens. So if you got some value from this video and you've got some clarity on Bitcoin in the short term and how to play these scenarios, then go ahead and drop me a like and subscribe to the channel. And I'm also going to be coming out with an Ethereum video and telling you what I think there is potential more downside and how Ethereum can potentially crash another 40 to 50% in this bear market. So if that sounds good to you, like, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.